All right, AnCap Radio. What is going
Adam's
on?
starting
Hello
up.
and welcome.
Dave, you should have an
Welcome.
invite.
Thank you, Cam. Cam, make sure you mute your mic there. Thank you, AnCap Radio. All right. We are joined today by some of the greatest minds in anarcho-capitalism. Many of you know Doug Casey, Matt Smith, Jeff Berwick. We have a surprise panelist today as well, Dave Henderson. If you don't know who Dave is, Google or look up Be Very Afraid. He's the author of Be Very Afraid. Some may say the Guy Fawkes of New Zealand. He is the man. So we are busy setting up Doug and Dave's accounts here so that way they can get into the space. Got to polish off the dust, right? Here we go. We're bringing some greatness into Twitter Spaces. But in the meantime, we do have Matt and Jeff here. Good to see you guys both. I guess before I go any further, I'll say hello, and I'm sure our audience would like to hear from both of you, Matt, and then Jeff.
I got to say, good to be here. I appreciate this, Adam. I do not belong in the same category as Doug Casey or Jeff Berwick. So in terms of AnCap loyalists, people who have sold the ideas far and wide, Jeff especially has been, with all his events, with the original Anarcast, which is still available, I believe, and still run, although he's not hosting it anymore. He's done as much to perpetuate the ideas of liberty and free market capitalism as anybody. So anyway, I'm appreciative of being here. Jeff, thanks for being here too.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? I've never really used this before, so does it sound fine?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Jeff, while we're waiting on,
Yep.
I was to say, while we're waiting on Doug, because I have no idea how long it's going to be before he gets here. I'm curious. Most people have no idea what it even means to be anarcho-capitalist. What is anarcho-capitalism even? What does it mean?
Well, let me start off by saying that I'm greatly appreciative of you, Matt, for bringing Doug Casey back sort of like onto the internet in video format. And I've grown to really respect and enjoy hearing from you just as much as Doug now. So thank you for doing that. As far as, what was the question? What is an anarcho-capitalist?
Yeah, what does it even mean? It's confusing.
I don't think it's that confusing, but I think we have to use that word because no one else, because all the other words are destroyed. And so actually both the word anarchist and capitalist are destroyed. So we're trying to explain what we kind of believe using destroyed words, basically. I don't know who the voice is, but maybe he can mute. But obviously, we use anarchist, which actually I rarely use anymore, even though I run Anarcho-Poco. Like, I'd be just as happy if we called it voluntary Poco, but it just doesn't sound as good. But the reason is because, like, there's so much confusion about the word. And I was actually hoping to bring the word back. But we live in a world full of just zombies and NPCs, and everyone goes to the communist education camps for like 16 years. You can't talk to anybody. So a lot of people think anarchist is a communist, or I've seen all kinds of things. The latest one is anarcho-transfeminism, which doesn't even make any sense, really. But the reason we use the word, though, is because it's actually a simple word. It should be quite simple. It's just a Greek word that just means no rulers. And then, people go to the 12 years of government indoctrination camps. So they're like, I don't like that because there's no rules. It's like, I didn't say no rules. I said no rulers. But they can't hear you, right? Because they're on fluoride and being chemtrailed and lethally injecting themselves like 3 times a year now. So, but basically it just means no rulers, which actually is like pretty much the clearest way of saying that you believe in freedom. You don't think anyone should be a slave. And of course, your average person thinks we're all crazy for believing that. That's the crazy world we live in. And then, of course, capitalist has also been destroyed. A lot of people think what they see pretty much in the U.S. today is capitalism. It's actually almost like it's barely even any capitalism left. It's basically just fascism, just like almost every country on earth. And all these people vote for all these governments, which are all fascist, and they're all anti-fascist. It's, we live in clown world. But when we talk about capitalism, what we're talking about is free markets. There should be no criminal organizations that everyone thinks should be legitimate that steals or regulates anything in the markets. So really, an anarcho-capitalist is someone who believes in total freedom, and that includes freedom of yourself, your money, the markets, And your average person just can't even get their head around that, because like there's we're so far away from that right now. We're pretty much at peak statism right now.
That's a good point. I mean, I think it does feel like those ideas are fantasy-like, given where everything is today. So how do
Yeah,
we bridge the
it's
gap? How do we get there from
well,
here?
well, I'm already there. So like I don't really care if anyone else joins me at this point. I'm just going to do my thing. I barely do anything to do with governments. I avoid it. I'll do everything I can. I even try to destroy governments while I'm at it, using cryptocurrencies, try to take down the central banks, which take down the governments. But I'm basically already there. I think a lot of people, though, for the first time in a long time, are starting to realize there's something wrong in the world. They keep going for political solutions, and things get worse and worse because politics just inherently is evil. When you try to do something evil, you end up with horrible, evil things. But we've seen a lot of people starting to catch on to this a little bit more. Definitely since, well, if Doug's not here at the moment, but when he started, like there was probably like 5 people he would call anarcho-capitalists in the world that he knew of. Probably Murray Rothbard, Jeffrey Tucker, a few others. There wasn't that many that actually considered themselves to be that. But now there's got to be, it's in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions at this point. And when I started about 13 years ago, I would have estimated it was in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands. So it's definitely growing dramatically. But one of the things I've kind of learned over time is I wanted to change the world, and I wanted to wake people up so that they could create a much better world by getting rid of governments and central banks, which would get rid of all wars, and get rid of poverty, and get rid of all the major problems in the world. But people want to be slaves. And being a person who meditates a lot now, I don't want to force. Well, I didn't want to before either. I didn't want to force anyone to be like a non-statist, like a person who really believes in freedom. But meditating more now, I'm like, well, I definitely don't want to force anyone to do anything. And in fact, I don't even really care what they do at this point. I'm just going to live my life the way I do, and I live pretty much almost completely free of government, except for passports, the bane of my existence. But even then, I do what Doug recommends, which is have numerous passports so that no one nation state criminal organization can claim complete ownership over me.
Makes sense. Once we get Dave and Doug on here, I want to talk about like where one could most be free today, because I know Mexico's been a lot better than most places have with that, and that's where you're based. But one of the things that was you're talking about the your change in view on it, where you wanted to wake people up, and now it's much more of like a personal journey. The way I see being AnCap is much more a personal philosophy than it is a political philosophy. It's really more how you conduct yourself than it is necessarily worrying about the society around you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like basically what I'm saying is that the world would be better if people understood what we understand. That governments and central banks make everything so much worse, but they don't seem to be ready to understand that yet, or even open themselves up to it. And so many people are, like they say in the Matrix, inured to the system, that they'll try to kill you for even proposing of getting rid of the system as it is today. Sorry, I forgot what the question was.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying is that I see it much more as like a personal philosophy rather than a political philosophy.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of wanted to like wake people up to this, and I've tried for like 13 years, and it's worked to some extent. Like, just the fact, I don't know how many people are on this Twitter Spaces, for example, but if we had done this, if Twitter existed like 13 years ago, which I don't know if it did or not. I think it did. And if the Twitter Spaces existed, there'd be like no one on here. No one would even know what we're talking about. So this is definitely growing, and that's good. And I'm glad to see that. But I just personally, I'm not in it to wake everyone up at this point. I'm more just enjoying the apocalypse and the collapse of all the statism and all that. And being the capitalist type, I plan to profit from a lot of what's going on. We're going to have so many things collapse in the next few years. Central banks, currencies, governments themselves. that there's going to be massive opportunities. So the capitalist side of me is ready to jump in there as well. But yeah, it is more of a personal sort of a thing to me as well. Just I live my life in a way that I don't want to ever hurt others on purpose. Like accidental is a different story. Like if you do it by accident, that's something different. But like never ever on purpose do I ever want to hurt, steal, or violently aggress against others. And I don't want anyone to do that against me. And of course, if they do, then I'll have to react in that moment. But I'd like a world like that. And that's basically how I do live my life. And living in Mexico here, there really isn't much government involvement. So I'm basically living pretty anarcho-capitalist lifestyle here in Mexico, and just waiting for the whole system to collapse and burn down, which I'm super excited about.
You've been documenting this all very well on your videos that you do, which people can get them at vigilante.tv if you aren't. And I'm not here to promote your stuff, but I love it and watch it. And I know Doug does. It's hilarious. And it's really helped actually my view on all this to watching those videos to give me a more, to allow me to view it in a more humorous way, I guess. Because your sense of humor and the way you view things is, I don't know, it adds some levity that the situation really needs, because it is basically the apocalypse from what you're saying. And watching it happen can be entertaining.
Yeah, I guess I've always kind of been like nothing's too serious. Like Doug's got a saying like that, I think he took from something that I think it, right? It's something, but it's not serious.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is exactly. I wish you were here.
It's basically it's basically like it's hopeless. I think it's hopeless.
It's hopeless,
but it's
hopeless.
Yeah, but
it's not serious.
But it's not serious. And so I've kind of been like that the whole way. When the COVID stuff started, I kind of got like a little upset about it. Which I rarely ever get upset, but like it was totally like affecting my life, and like traveling was just becoming a nightmare. Everyone's if not in Mexico, but if you go like Canada, the U.S., you don't wear a surgeon's mask, people are going to be like throwing stuff at you and stuff, and I could see the whole plan because they've done this before. This has been going on for a long time. All these kinds of things. This is the biggest and most effective one because more people are under mind control than ever before. But I saw exactly where they're going with this, and I was like kind of upset and kind of angry and kind of depressed. But I just got more into my meditation. In some ways, the whole COVID thing, I think it changed a lot of people. For me personally, because I couldn't travel as much, I guess I could have traveled, but I didn't want to because it was just too irritating. That I ended up getting more into my self-work and my meditation and stuff. And pretty quickly, I started to just, not worry about any of this stuff much anymore. And then I just, just sort of came naturally just to make more and more fun of it. And it's so easy to make fun of. Like we live in a true clown world now. Like there's drag queens doing lap dances for kindergartners now. And a lot of people are like, that's great. That's wonderful.
It's brave. It's brave, actually.
Oh, yeah, it's brave. It's beautiful. It's all those things, And, that's just one example of like hundreds. Like people wore surgeon's masks for no reasons for 3 years and didn't leave their house, a lot of them, and injected themselves with poison. So like you can look at it two ways. Like this is a dystopian nightmare, which in many ways it kind of is, although it's going to get far more dystopian in my, opinion, but we'll see. Like, I think I'll still be able to get around most of it. Or you could just completely, like George Carlin said, you're at the freak show, you got a front row seat, and you might as well just enjoy it. And I think like what else can you really do? we're like I had no idea. If you would have asked me 5 or 10 years ago, Jeff, do you think the majority of like the Western world, at least, and most of the world, are completely and totally under mind control and will do anything that they put on the television programming or that some guy with like a government badge on tells them to do? I would have guessed it was way, way, way less. But that COVID thing showed they've got them completely under mind control. And So what do? You're basically it's basically like I live in the Matrix movie, and I'm kind of like Neo now, and I'm just like walking around, just like him, just like looking at all these bots, and what do you do except for just enjoy it, right?
Yeah, what do you think about that's true, but what do you think about the how would an ANCAP society have handled COVID? Like, how would it, if there were more followers or believers in an ANCAP philosophy, how would it have been different?
Matt, it's Dave. Can you hear me?
Well,
Yes, Dave, welcome.
Sorry about that. I'm incompetent, but anyway, isn't that a bit oxymoronic? Saying how would an ANCAP society handle COVID? I mean, why is there anything to handle? Isn't it? It's just a bug like like anything else that one encounters in life, and just got to get on and deal with it, and help in the most responsible way you can.
well, the one thing that like let's just say Liberland is a good example of what would be an ANCAP society. It's basically a country now. And the one thing that we know pretty much for sure is if they're really anarcho-capitalists, that the country or the government or the society wouldn't force you to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And we've seen a few places that didn't really force you to do anything, and they did far better over the last few years than all the places who did. Mexico is an excellent example. It's been doing incredibly well. They never enforced anything. In fact, the president was calling it a scam, which it totally was from almost the beginning. So it's actually fairly anarcho-capitalist here in Mexico already. And yeah, it went fairly well. There's a lot of people still under mind control, and they wear the surgeon's mask, and that's mostly out of fear and mind control. And there's not much you can do about that. And that's actually why I'm kind of pretty much in favor of the genocide that Kill Gates is doing. Because, I don't know what you do with people that are this under mind control. There's really nothing. And he's basically killing most of them now. So I'm, a huge fan of that part of it.
Mm. Actually, Jeff, this circles back to a question that Matt and Doug were talking about just prior to this. Is that you've just arrived here from planet AnCap, where hopefully some distant place in our galaxy there's a rational planet where people are peaceful and treat themselves respectfully, and by some gross misfortune you've landed on planet Earth. Where do you go to live?
Well, I think I'm doing that right now. That's how I view this world. I view it as I'm in a matrix. I've been put here for some reason. I probably decided to play this game. So now where do I live? And that's basically what I'm doing, is living in Acapulco, Mexico at the moment, in Acapulco. I was just thinking before we came on this call, having Doug and Matt on, that we definitely have a lot of people talk a lot of stuff, but they don't live by the stuff they talk about. And yep. I didn't know Matt as much before, but Doug's been talking for years about how the U.S. is going to be a disaster, and you should get out of there. And I've been saying the same thing. And now Doug and Matt are in Uruguay, and I'm here in Mexico. So, yeah, I think you can be okay anywhere if you are doing the right work, and mostly all the self work and meditation, all that kind of stuff. You can be fine pretty much anywhere. Like I'd probably be fine in North Korea. I'd probably find a way to do whatever I needed to do. But in general, Mexico and Latin America in general has been one of the better places. And when you look at what's going on with cryptocurrencies and stuff, for example, in El Salvador, so in Central America, in El Salvador, they made Bitcoin a legal tender. A lot of cryptocurrency people are moving there. And then right next door in Honduras, on Roatan, they've got the Free Cities Project and Prospera, which a lot of libertarians are moving to. So really Latin America, which Doug has talked about quite a bit in the past. I think he said, it's too bad he's still not on, but I don't think he even has a phone. But I remember him saying numerous times the two places that he likes the most are Latin America and Asia, and I kind of agree with that. I Latin America, definitely Mexico. I like Uruguay a lot. It's a little well, it was a little too quiet for me in the past. Now that I'm changed my total lifestyle, it'd probably be totally fine for me. And there's lots of other great places. Argentina could be pretty amazing again. You can still live really well in Argentina if you want. And then Asia, there's so many interesting cultures over there. Thailand's very interesting. But I think you can get by pretty much anywhere
Right.
you want with the right perspective and the right attitude.
But what you're saying, Jeff, is that at core, the starting point, the most important thing, is getting one's metaphysical philosophy resolved, and from that one can live largely in peace in any environment or any jurisdiction.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started in Acapulco, it was all about getting rid of governments and central banks. And a lot of people were kind of angry and all that kind of stuff. Now in Acapulco is held in a botanical garden. We have like numerous days all on health stuff, mental health, physical, spiritual type stuff. And that's because what I realized is because I started in Acapulco kind of with the idea that the biggest enemy of mankind are the state and the central banks. I started the Dollar Vigilante with the same philosophy. But after a few years, about 5 or 6 or 7 years of stuff, I started to realize there's one much, much bigger enemy to everyone on earth than the governments and the central banks, and that's their own mind. If you are living in your mind and you don't have control over your mind, and if you don't do the work to get all the programming out of your mind, because we're all mind controlled and programmed to certain extents, then that's going to be always your biggest problem. The governments and central banks are actually almost nothing compared to that. So that's been my change.
Right. Okay. Which is the philosophic principles or philosophic foundation. And I mean, in theory, one shouldn't even get out of bed until that's resolved, should you?
Right.
Matt, we were just going to also talk, and forgive me cutting across you, Jeff, is about the concept of AnCap radio and what we're trying to do here.
That's right. This was really your brainchild. So yeah, why don't you tell people what you're hoping to accomplish with all this?
Well, it's really been a discussion between Doug and I for a number of years now, and obviously technology has moved positively towards making this hopefully a simple reality. And the aspiration was to set up a 24-hour international radio station, which its point of difference from podcasts was that it's obviously live, it's dealing with issues of the moment, and it's able to interact with its audience through the equivalency of a talkback where people can come on and questions can be taken, live interviews can be undertaken, and so forth. So, of course, this today was using Twitter Spaces, was really an opportunity to test this out and save a demonstration of Doug and my's technical incompetence. We hope that we can in the next couple of hours just achieve that. And we've got Adam there. Adam, we were going to try and take some calls in here as well, weren't we?
That's right. Yeah, perfect timing too. And Jeff, what's going on? Voice of Liberty, Adam Carswell here. Good to see you, man. Hope the baby's doing well. I know my little guy's about the same age. So, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and open up the floor now. Also, keep an eye on the comments. We're gonna be dropping a link soon where you can register for breaking news and updates on AnCap Radio. As Dave said, this is a new. Really not new because him and Doug have been working on it for a while, but it's finally hit the ground running, and we're really looking forward to going live on a weekly basis and building this into more of a 24/7 radio station where you can access it anytime, anywhere, and it all starts right here. So Dave Henderson, Doug Casey, a lot of credit for making it happen. Matt and Jeff, I mean, you can't really think of better people to have the first session that we do with. And just want to remind everyone, if you do want to come up here and ask a question, all you got to do is tap the reactions button. Down at the bottom, there's a little heart there if you're on mobile. If you are on desktop, I know you can only listen in right now, but if you're on mobile, there's a little reactions button. You can raise your hand. And on that note, Dave, I don't know if there's anything more to the story or the vision of AnCap Radio that you wanted to add.
Well, just that in the fullness of time. I mean, the idea is to have it as a formal platform through an app, and from any device, anywhere, anyone can access it. There'll be regular hosts, people who have a 5 days a week, 3-hour show, and then there'll be one-off hosts who come on for a couple of hours. But the fundamental idea is first and foremost to promote the philosophy, and disseminate the ideas around that, and then secondly to be actively discussing the issues of the day with competent people, competent hosts, with the hope that one can intellectually arm listeners with strong arguments, about the issues of the day, strong positions about issues of the day from a AnCap perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
So continuing the kind of the philosophical conversation, again, everyone in the audience, if you have a thought, you have a question for Dave, Matt, Jeff, or a statement, all you got to do is tap that reactions button and raise your hand. Someone from our team will make sure you get up here. But one thing about the AnCap philosophy, what are some of the core principles, the do's and don'ts? What's something that somebody maybe does that instantly would disqualify them from being in the philosophy, or the other way around?
Jeff, why don't you have a go at that?
I don't know. I don't really when I look at people who believe in these sort of things, anarcho-capitalist type philosophy, it's really just don't aggress against others, and that's basically it. So the big problem in the world today is most people don't recognize what aggression is. So they think, well, I'll go vote for this guy, and he'll force these people to do this stuff, and he'll steal a bunch of money, and that's all good. But other than that, it's like the most simple sort of philosophy to me. It's like it's basically what Jesus said, and of course the Romans and the Jews basically killed Jesus for saying that. So that's how it usually goes when you try to bring up the topic of complete freedom and the end of slavery with mind-controlled slaves.
Yeah. So it's predicated, isn't it, on a fundamental moral principle that no one has the right to the life or property of another person. And I mean, this is often a confusing point. I mean, fundamentally, there are no rights, are there? The only rights that exist arise as a consequence of there being no rights. In other words, if I can articulate that, the so-called right to life exists because no one else has a right to your life. So with that implicitly, you have a right to life. Your right to your property arises because no one else has a right to your property. No one has the ability to take it away. So the moral right to take it away, not the ability. So that's the fundamental principles that the whole philosophy is predicated on. And as you articulated, it's fundamentally just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone.
Yep. All right. Well, Dave, we have our first ever, we'll call it call-in speaker here on AnCap Radio, and that's AP. I see you there with the kind of the 8-bit art there. If you want to go ahead and ask your question or share your thought.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This question goes to Jeff, to Matt, or whoever wants to answer. I'm calling from Buenos Aires. Very interesting what's going on here for the AnCap community. I don't know if you're aware, but there is a candidate here that is an AnCap, even though that he doesn't call himself AnCap anymore because he's now about 30% on the polls. So he's a very important person, not only for Argentina, but considering the resources of Argentina for the world. And I want to know if you have heard about him and any comments.
Well, just say I've definitely heard about him, and Doug and I have talked about him a number of times on the podcast. It's amazing, actually, that his popularity and it looks like he has a real shot at winning there. And and part of it is because I know his message is really catching on with the younger generation, but it's not just the younger generation. There are some pretty well-to-do Argentines that I know that sincerely believe that he's got a shot and like what he says and would likely vote for him. And then of course there's the normal man on the street type of situation where I saw an interview recently where someone is asking Porteño who they're going to vote for in the election, and their response was Cristina. And the guy said, well, Cristina's not running this time. And he said, well, Milei then. So that's kind of the average voter, but still, it's a great sign. And it's super exciting to see what happens there.
Yeah, it actually shows a lot of things. Doug was, I don't know if he founded it but he was involved with it at I remember I went to it in Buenos Aires about 15 years ago. It was an AnCap group, a lot of really smart, serious people. I wouldn't doubt it if all that kind of stuff going on back then, which Doug was quite involved in, has kind of led to the possibility of a person who believes in anarcho-capitalism becoming the president of Argentina. But yeah, it's very interesting. And, Latin America has... A lot of people just assume it's all very socialist/communist, but it's really not in many ways. Like in Brazil, there's a massive amount of people that go to, I think, the Mises Institute. In Brazil, I've seen protests in Brazil of people holding up less Marx, more Mises. We're seeing in Argentina a anarcho-capitalist rising up, and it's about time. Looking at Argentina, how many times are they going to let the government destroy their own currency because of stupidity, and keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? I can't believe how long they've managed to just keep doing that. But if any of these places ever kind of change and really change in a dramatic direction towards basically an anarcho-capitalist mindset, which would basically mean downsizing the government to almost nothing, getting rid of the central bank, those sort of things. Any country that does that and does it successfully and withstands the CIA and the U.S. government's attacks and terrorist attacks and everything they're going to do to them to try to stop them, it'll become the beacon of prosperity on earth for most people. It'll basically become what the USA was 300 years ago, a place where people would run to because finally there's a place that's doing that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited that he's seems to be doing very well at the moment. It's weird as an anarcho-capitalist or anarchist to even care about who's the president, but if we can get a true libertarian into one of these places and they can actually do the things they want to do, that's going to be so hard because so many people, just like in the Matrix, are inert to the system. But if they can, it'll change the world dramatically. It'll be almost like a renaissance of everything in the world. So yeah, very exciting times. I'm definitely watching and very interested to see how it goes. I actually even just talked to Doug. I'm trying to get him to speak at Anarchapulco. Yeah, that's super exciting. Like I said, there's a lot of great things going on in Latin America. So we talked about Mexico is pretty good. There's hardly any government involvement in anything. El Salvador has got cryptocurrencies as their legal tender. Honduras has free cities now. There's almost a narco-capitalist running in Argentina and might win. So there's tons and tons of potential, and this might be Latin America might become the new basically the U.S. of 300 years ago in the next decade.
Yes, definitely, Jeff. And one thing that is amazing, and I think is the biggest message I want to pass here, is it's amazing to see on main TV, in main television, in Argentinian channels, discussions about anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism, and freedom, which when you look around the world, everyone is talking about war or communism, socialism. Here is kind of like a light. It's very interesting. So I just wanted to pass the message about what's going on the ground. Everyone is talking about this, talking about liberty, talking about freedom. Amazing.
That's fantastic.
Okay, bueno.
I saw a clip of Javier Milei hitting a central bank piñata live on Buenos Aires morning television, which is fantastic. Who would have thought?
And what date is the election?
Well, they have
Do we
a
know?
very special system here. They call the pasos, which is every party choose their candidate. But this is what dictates what is going to happen in the country. So Milei is trying to fight to pass through this process. So going to election on August. Sorry, in October. The pasos is August, and this will basically dictate. This first shot will dictate who is the president. So some people think that Milei, because the velocity of the ideals of freedom are going through the population, which is already AnCap population, they keep their money under the couch or even in safes inside the bank, but not money in the bank, cash in the safes of the bank. So this is a very already AnCap population. So it's very interesting. He can even make it on the first.
Okay. Thank you.
Very, very insightful. Thank you, AP, for hopping up here. And now we've got Crypto Juggernaut. You're on the mic, sir. What do you have for the panel?
Hey guys, good stuff. Yeah, I had a question for Jeff. You mentioned earlier about passports, having multiple passports. I just wondered if you could go over how that is doable, because I know passport, of course, is one of the things that you can get trapped somewhere and never be able to leave. So how hard is it to get multiple passports around the world, and where's a good place, and where would you say is a good starting point?
Well, I would say if that's what you're concerned about, the most important thing is to decide where you want to live. Because if things go the way I expect over the next few years, a lot of people won't be able to travel for a period of time. They'll lock it down again for whatever reason. That COVID thing was all just a trial run, and it went incredibly well for them. So the most important thing is to decide where you think you might want to be for the next few years and go there right now. That's probably the most important. And we've seen how quickly they can shut it down. The World Health Organization just did a deal with the European Union to bring out their vaccine passports now, which they intend to go worldwide. And as soon as they bring out their next little thing, whatever thing they make up, monkeypox or whatever, it's all made up stuff. It doesn't matter. It's all computer programs. But they'll just shut it down. You won't be able to go anywhere. So the most important thing really is being where you think you want to be and being self-sustainable in that place. And I would recommend being away from large population centers, because what we're going to see is the collapse of pretty much everything over the next few years. The economy, for sure, we still haven't seen that. It's on the cusp right now. When that happens, they're going to start printing out more fiat currency. Then it's going to go into hyperinflation. Then they've got their wars going. This is, so far more important than a passport is being where you want to be. Now, if you are in that place, it's good to have a second passport, or at least an option to go somewhere else. Of course, you always can. There's always ways around everything. That's one thing that I think people don't realize. Because I've always been the kind of person that I'll find a way around anything, everything, in any way possible. I don't care about their laws or rules or anything. I'll find a tunnel to go into a place or whatever it is. People should be a lot more thinking in that respect. But having another passport is a good backup sort of a thing. It's also good in terms of taxation, to avoid taxation. Obviously, we don't want to feed the beast. But as far as getting another one, that's a long story. It would take a long time to talk about. But obviously, if you've got grandparents from a different country, you might be able to get a passport there. There's lots you can pay for. It's usually around $100,000 in places like St. Kitts or Antigua and all these kind of places. Actually, Doug Casey kind of started up the one in, I don't know if it's Antigua or I forget the name of it, actually, one of those Caribbean islands. But way more importantly, like I said, is making sure you're in a good spot where if everything gets basically shut down for 5 years, which is totally possible, that you're in a place you want to be and that you can survive during that time.
Okay, thanks.
What passport do you currently carry?
I don't tell everyone exactly for my own protection, but it's pretty public knowledge. I was born in Canada, so I have the Canadian one, which I wouldn't mind getting rid of fairly soon. I can see they're going to go towards the worldwide taxation sort of a thing. And I use trust and everything. They can never get me. I use Monero. Like they're never going to be able to get me on anything. But I also have a Dominican Republic passport, which actually I got like years ago, and I've never used it. And it's actually almost like unusable. Like it's only accepted by a few countries in the world. But I
Sure.
do have that option to go there if I want. And of course, I'm here in Mexico, and I don't say too much about exactly how I'm set up here for my own protection, but I'm pretty good here in Mexico as well. And then I've also got my diplomatic Liberland passport, and Liberland's being accepted by more and more places all over the place. So it's pretty close. Maybe in the next year or two, it'll be really a completely recognized country by most countries on Earth, and then I'll be a diplomat, so they won't even be able to put me in jail at that point.
Well done. Okay.
Big King, you are on the mic, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Jeff, I watch your videos quite often. I like Max's. I'm usually right up to date on Max Egan's stuff. I'm calling in from Switzerland now, and I'm actually a Canadian, Jeff. I was born there, and I've been in Switzerland probably for over 20 years now. But if you're talking about passports and stuff, the reason I'm in Switzerland, my parents were both Swiss, so it wasn't a problem for me to get a passport. And I have a Canadian passport too, so when I go to Canada, I have to actually travel with both now. But so that's actually a little bit of a hassle. But anyways, that's enough for passports. My question was about WTC 7 and 9/11 and the fact that 98% of the people don't really understand what happened there. If you know what I mean, they all buy into the official story. So I think they just don't have common sense. And I think that's what actually, I came to this conclusion. I might be ranting on here, but I came to this conclusion that the people that went along with 9/11, the official story that bin Laden was pulling the levers in the cave and all that stuff, that those people are the same ones that took the vax because they're just, they didn't have any common sense. Because I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I mean, it was just so obvious what was going on. No, it's a disaster, and so now we got all these people that don't have any common sense. They just can't figure this out, and this is going to get really messy over the years. I expect by the end of the decade we're going to have some serious burnt earth, and these people are arguing about what a man and a woman is, and this sort of stuff. If the earth is flat or not. I don't. They're totally distracted with the Trump garbage. They're bought into that nonsense, and I just don't see how we're ever going to get out of this mess without some serious conflict. So that's it. Go ahead, please, Jeff. Maybe you can react to that.
Yeah, well, I would just say, like, I'm already out of this mess. Like, like I don't know what you're waiting like for the rest of the world to do, but I don't care what the rest of the world does. But yeah, like you bring up how most people, what you'd be surprised, like here in Mexico, everyone I talked to in the past, when I used to like talk to them about things like 9/11, everyone's like, of course the CIA did it. So it's like it's a lot of Americans who are under mind control, a lot of Canadians are super under mind control. And yeah, they're all taking the jab and they're all going to be genocided. So it's great. So like, it's basically already taking care of itself. It's actually a beautiful time.
Well, I'm not actually on that side of thinking, Jeff. I know where you're coming from, but I'm a little bit of a humanitarian. And, my brothers, I got 4 brothers in Canada. They all took the shot. And, one of them was just running out to get it. The other one, he's sold on it. And he thinks it's a great idea. He got COVID. And he's like, but it's good because I had the shot, so it wasn't so bad. And, I mean, we're dealing with pretty serious brainwashing here. I mean, it's pretty hard to unpickle a pickle.
But you don't have to. That's the biggest thing, is I think Jeff talked about in the very beginning. I agree with this. It's not your responsibility. It's not your obligation to unpickle any pickles. It's just, people will find their own way. And the best thing you can do is focus on you and that doesn't make you a non-humanitarian as far as I'm concerned. It's the do-gooders who actually cause the trouble. It's the people who feel like something must be done to help people or to right the wrongs, that's kind of the where things spiral out of control with the state, is that kind of thinking, frankly.
Well, frankly, the people who don't speak up are part of the problem, because like 9/11, they got away with a lot of murders and, the weapons of mass destruction nonsense and all that. And we didn't have people speak up strongly enough, I think. I don't know. But, you got to tell the truth. That's the only way. And the truth is very ugly, but it has to get out there. And this is the only way. And just ignoring it and say, well, I'm not going to worry about humanity. I'm just going to worry about myself and, take care of myself and my family. Yeah, of course. That's first and foremost. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. But I just feel compelled. I feel compelled to help society somehow and get out there and tell the truth of what's going on.
What do you think we're doing?
You're listening to this. This is the exact purpose of this concept, and hopefully that it can evolve to a radio station that's 24 hours, that is disseminating and discussing in a meaningful way these ideas and concepts and trying to get people to unpickle themselves, because at the end of the day, it's your own responsibility to sort yourself out.
Yeah, I would just say that, I've been trying to wake people up for like 15 years, or 20 years almost, and the reason I've come to this sort of conclusion now is because it's almost impossible. So what do you do at that point, right? And when I say it's great that Kill Gates is killing off a lot of mind control people, I'm all like, don't get me wrong, you as a person, I'm sorry to that might kill them at some point. It's actually really sad. It's totally sad what's going on in general. But then it's also like, what can you really do about it, right? Like, you can't even wake up your own brothers to these sort of things. And there's no real answers to a lot of these things, but your average person, like most people, do not want to wake up. Like, just watch the movie The Matrix, and that's basically all you need to know. Like, all those people who are in the Matrix are all the people who are here on Earth, and they are inured to the system. They think anyone who realizes there's something that they're in a Matrix, they want to kill those sort of people or hate them. And your average person, you're right, doesn't want to think for themselves. And that's why the whole world's not anarcho-capitalist right now, because it takes thinking for yourself, it takes having your own responsibility and stuff like that. And your average person also does not have any sort of courage to ever stand up to anything, ever. They always will go with the crowd. This is just basic human psychology. And this is what the globalist types know, and that's why they've been so successful. They know if they can do a certain amount of things, get the media all parroting the same words, get the government guys parroting it, get the celebrities, which people look up to, saying the same thing, that your average person will just follow along with whatever it is. And even if they know the truth, they won't speak up because they'll be scared to lose their job or whatever. So yeah, like, it's, when it comes to all these sort of things, there's no easy solution, and that's why I've basically come to the point where it's like, okay, well, I'm telling people what's actually true, what's actually happening, what you can do to have a better life, but I'm just going to do it myself and get some popcorn and watch the end of the world, watch it all burn.
Big King Fisher, thank you for coming up here and sharing those thoughts. Really, some good stuff here. And just a reminder to everyone here: this space will be. It is being recorded, and so stay tuned for AnCap radio updates. Again, there's a link down below that you can check out and make sure you don't miss anything, but this is being recorded. So, Mock Redicated, you are on the mic.
Thank you. It's actually Mac Redacted, but no worries. Yeah. So thanks for taking my question. And just a quick comment first, just like Big King Fisher, I'm a big longtime fan of listener and watcher of Jeff and both Max Egan. And I just started following AnCap, seeing that, that Jeff was going to be here, and love what I'm hearing so far about what you're planning to do in terms of a radio. Um, what I'm really interested in is messaging, because I understand the concept that you can't unpickle a pickle. However, I would argue that there's many that are still cucumbers. So lots of folks who want to learn more, lots of those NPCs who didn't agree with mandates and were very disturbed by what was happening, but trying to digest, or I guess consolidate, the wealth of information about what is going on, and Agenda 2030 and all of these complex, in their minds, complex things that they're just now hearing about. Like Jeff said, I think many of them get really terrified at actually pulling back the truth. And so what I'd be really interested in is whether it's one radio show on the show, is the concept that there is some really easy to digest information for sort of the newbies, like a 101. Because what I am finding is that if you look at how these folks behave, they are followers by nature, right? That's what MPCs are. They are followers. And I feel that we can sort of turn the trajectory on that, because they will also follow if all of the narrative starts changing. And again, they will kind of follow more on an AnCap type style, if that makes any sense. So what I'd like to do is have more easy to disseminate sort of sound bites or bits of info. We've seen how powerful things like memes are at just sort of showing folks, even just the idea of, taxation is theft and sort of things like that, I find are very helpful to start to get people thinking. Those folks who are sort of like, yeah, something is not right here. How come my government won't let me go out today, or these types of things. So wondered if there's any idea, whether it's Dave or Jeff, I know Jeff is always really good at giving actionable steps, as he's mentioned, but anything there to sort of to appeal and help educate the ignorance of that crowd, and just wake up more folks, but with sort of easy to digest information.
Definitely want to hear Matt, Doug, and Dave's take on this real quick. Mock, and this goes for everyone here. AnCap Radio is live on TikTok and YouTube, and there are little bite-sized shorts, as an example, that you can now send to your friends, featuring people like Matt, Dave, Doug, and beyond. So I think that could probably answer the question there. And then as far as in a practical way, Matt, anything coming to mind for you there, Jeff?
The one thing you said about that people are followers, and if we can create a world where it's more anarcho-capitalist, they'll just follow along with it. I totally agree with that. And that's really what we've been trying to do. Doug's been trying to do this for like decades. I've been trying to do it for decades. I'm getting older now. I keep forgetting. That's what things like, Lieberland. Sorry, I speak a few different languages. I forgot how to say it in English. Lieberland is... we're trying to do is set up an area so that people can see, because that's actually been one of the biggest problems. I don't know how long you've been kind of into this way of thinking, Mock, but we've been doing this for decades. So we kind of forget that there's we don't forget, but we kind of forget what it's like to be a newbie sometimes. But I personally have been quite involved in trying to create areas where we can show, because a lot of the questions always were, like 10 or 15 years ago, we'd say, it'd be a lot better without any government at all and no central bank. And people would always respond with, well, who's going to build the roads, right? And so we want to make a place where we can show them, well, we have roads. There's no real government. The government doesn't do anything. And lead by example. And then things like Argentina, if that goes down that road, this is going to be very interesting times. As much as I talk sort of like, the whole world's going to burn, in many ways, there's going to be so many potential massive opportunities and massive changes that are possible. I think this COVID thing was probably the biggest gift they could have given us to waking up people. Before that, a lot of people just didn't get any of the stuff I was talking about, because I was always saying, they're going to shut you down, they're going to lock you down, they're going to inject you with poison, and people like that. They're not going to do that. Okay, well, now they did it. So now people are listening. So you're right. Spreading this information is really important. And the more that we can do it, the better. And people are more open to it than ever. So there's a lot of positive things going on as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Econ Bro, I know you've been waiting to get up here, man. Looks like maybe your connection dropped out earlier. So good to see you. And what questions do you have for the group?
Good evening, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good
Yep.
evening. I'm Econ Bro from Nigeria. First of all, let me apologize for the music in the background. I'm currently staying at a hotel, and they have a club of sorts outside, so the music is loud. So if you can hear that, I apologize for that. So as to why I'm currently at a hotel, it's because of what we're discussing here. I've been talking to people on Twitter here, trying to change their minds, get them to believe, to see things as we see them. So I recently turned libertarian. I'm like a year old in libertarianism. I used to be a conservative up until sometime last year, or I think 2021. When I got converted, and then I encountered through one of my friend Matt and Dog's podcast, and it has been really useful for me. I've read Rothbard and Mises and all those guys, and my mind is blown by the things that I've learned from those books. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually consider myself an AnCap as well. I mean, 2 years ago, I used to call AnCaps retarded, but here I am today. So,
there you go.
So I've been talking with young people at the universities here in Nigeria, and I literally decided I was going to do something about it rather than just sit, on my thumb and allow. So the Overton window in this part of the world is very, very small. It's all socialism. No one knows anything about markets or anything of the sort here in Nigeria. It's all socialism, 100% variations of socialism. So that's all we have here. So when you talk about free markets and abolishing central banking and private property rights, it sounds like you are speaking Greek to these people, to my people. So I decided to not just sit down and let that happen. So I've taken my own money, and I'm actually holding a seminar. Tomorrow is my inaugural seminar, where I'll be talking to students at one of the universities. I can't say where because this is being recorded, and I know there are some Nigerians that might be tuned into this, so I can't say where for safety reasons. But I'm actually talking to students at a university here tomorrow. It's evening here. I'm talking to them tomorrow morning about the evils of central banking and central planning as a whole. So those I've spoken to, they were so blown away by the things that I shared with them that they decided, okay, let's talk to our friends about it. And then they gathered a couple of students for me to talk to tomorrow. So I'm expecting about 50 to 60 people tomorrow to talk to them about these ideas. And I want to thank Matt Smith and Doug Casey, because one of the things that actually motivated me to really take this step was I listened to one episode of their podcast where they were talking about Javier Milei, and I mean, it's just interesting that libertarianism is spreading in other parts of the world. So I said I was very inspired by that podcast, and I said I was going to do something here, and well, that's what I'm doing now. So I just want to. I'm glad to meet AnCap Radio, which I didn't know about, and Jeff and everyone else who has spoken on this space. I'm very excited because I get to learn more from more people. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you. If you have any advice you can give to me, I'm all ears. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
well done. And I'm sure Matt will be enthused by that. But that's very much the purpose of this concept, is to hopefully help people like you arm yourself intellectually. And that's fantastic that you're turning up at a university to speak to 50 or 60 students in Nigeria. That's sensational.
Yeah. I intend to do it around the country. That's my goal for this year and next year. I'm going to go from state to state talking to students at the university. So I'm ready for this. So I'm glad to meet you all.
Good stuff,
Thank you.
Econ Bro. Keep fighting the good fight, guys. Make sure you go follow him and support him. That's awesome. Great work. And it's good that you finally came around to the AnCap side, man. Bill Raditz,
Hey,
you're on the
can
mic,
I
sir.
just make a comment? Can I make a comment before we start
Yeah,
that?
absolutely, Jeff.
Yeah, I just want to say that's totally awesome. That's exactly what we need. If you look back at communism, well, I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't there like 100 years ago or whatever, but it was a lot of that kind of stuff. A lot of people meeting and telling people about it and them getting excited about the ideas. Now, it turned out the ideas were horrible and in practice, they're the worst thing ever. But that's how it all started, was with people just telling other people about it. And of course, students are, it's actually, that's why they really want to have the government teaching kids and young people, is because they are incredibly open to new ideas. So that's absolutely awesome what you're doing. And yeah, I think like we're seeing stuff like that happening all over the place. And so I wish you the best of luck with that. And I think you can probably use that new Nigerian CBDC as good ammo to show people why they should stop using government currencies and start using things like cryptocurrencies.
Right. And Bill, you had a question?
Got to unmute your mic there, Bill.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
All right, good deal. Question for all of you guys. What book or books, whether fiction or nonfiction, best articulate, in your opinion, best articulate the AnCap philosophy, theory, and practice?
Well, I know Jeff and Dave both have great books out there.
Well, Matt, you start with Matt on that. What would you say is the book that has inspired you the most from an AnCap perspective?
Well, I don't know about inspired, but I got to support my man Doug, because he has a series of fiction books where we talk about the embodiment of what it means to live as a AnCap. I think it's best done through fiction, because you can't do this in nonfiction. You can't say the things he says, frankly, in nonfiction. And the first in that series is a book called Speculator. Drug Lord is the second one, which is my favorite, and Assassin, which came out, I guess, about 2 years ago, and shocking the things that were talked about in there, how timely it was. But I'd encourage those books. I'm a big fan.
Cool. And Jeff?
I would say the book that blew my mind, Doug Casey first told me about it. I'd read a few things. I was very interested in all this sort of stuff. It's called The Market for Liberty by Linda and Morris Tannehill. And it's very short. It's almost like a pamphlet. You could probably read it in about 1 or 2 hours, but it kind of gives like how the world could be if there was no government, basically. How everything would be privatized, how like insurance companies would come in and they'd actually set up stuff so there wouldn't be things like wildfires and stuff, because if there was, they have to pay out and stuff like that. So for me personally, that book is so simple and so easy to read, and it actually lit up my mind. I was just going crazy with, oh my God, we have to try to somehow create a world where this kind of stuff is possible. So that's definitely, there's lots of books by like Rothbard and Mises and all that, but a lot of those aren't easy for a lot of people to read, including myself. I've never gotten through a full Mises book myself, but this book is perfect. It's actually it's available for free on the internet at Mises.org as well.
Yeah, no, I read that 30 odd years ago now, and that was to me the most simple, sound explanation of the principles that I'd ever come across and have come across since. I don't know what became of the Tannehills. I tried to track them down at one stage. Do you have any idea? Have you even encountered them, or have any idea what became of them?
Yeah, actually, a guy in Argentina really tried to track them down. Like he's like almost like a private investigator, working with Doug and myself, because we were all very curious what happened to them. It's too bad Doug's still not here, but I think Morris Tannehill died a long time ago, and Linda kind of just faded off into obscurity. Last I heard, she was living on a bus somewhere and just living her life, and she didn't really want to get involved in these sort of things, which actually is kind of I totally understand at this point.
Oh, it's
Like
impressive.
I don't mind spreading these messages and people really getting into them, but I can totally see like not wanting to be too overly involved in it at a certain point, and just
Yeah.
let people run with the ideas. But yeah, so she's apparently still around the last that we heard, but she's kind of like a hermit now.
Yeah. Bill, did as Jeff identified, that book is available. You can just download it and for free, but it's a very easy read, and you'd want to reread it, keep it and reread it, because it explains the principles and sets out and answers all the usual questions that people raise when you start talking about the philosophy. You there, Bill? We lost you. Okay.
Here we go. We're
Cool.
on to Jaffer B.
Hey, Java.
And make sure you've got to unmute your mic there, Jaffer. We'll give you a few moments. If not, then we will move on to, looks like Mayor Kate is next in line.
No, we've lost
I
them.
got that wrong. Yeah, the economic truth. You're here. And go ahead.
Hey guys, I want to say how much I appreciate everybody that's working on spreading the word of AnCapism, and I've been to have had the chance to meet Jeff and Doug and not Matt yet, but you guys are doing a wonderful job. I just wanted to say, like, the one thing that I've had great success with when it comes to pushing people in the AnCap direction is to point out stupid things that the government do. And evil things that the government do, but also then, saying that, well, why do we need a government at all? And it seems to get a lot more traction now that we're in the last phase of government, which is the totalitarian, where it goes from a democracy into a totalitarian regime. And so, like locally here in Canada, like I live in Canada, I don't want to make fun of it, but actually, just locally in Manitoba, Canada, a lot of people are starting to turn away from supporting governments right now because of just, pointing out the idiotic and stupid and evil things that government does and say, like, why do we need them? So anyways.
Right. No, that's so you're in Manitoba.
Yeah, I'm in Manitoba, Canada right now. I'm from Norway originally, so I grew up in a socialist hellhole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. No, well, there is pushback that arose as a consequence of all the COVID nonsense, isn't there? I mean, that is the positive side of something like that. Is as Jeff has mentioned, other callers have mentioned, is that people do see the state starting to shape up at its very worst, and they do become a bit more militant as a consequence, which is very positive.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So again, I'll let you guys get back to it. But I just want to thank you all for all the hard work that's going into this, and hopefully it's going to be a great success.
Well, thank you. Let's hope so.
Good stuff.
Appreciate your support.
Shout out to the Canadians. My wife's Canadian. The person behind the scenes here on AnCap Radio is over in Calgary, Alberta. So we got to get him out of there eventually, right? But good stuff, guys. Mayor Kate, you are now on the mic. Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad to see an AnCap Radio Spaces on Twitter. Everything's usually so dominated by either the left or the right. I see a lot of conservatives trying to give solutions. And when I come in as an AnCap, it's like I'm met with so much confusion and disbelief that it's ever possible. But I know things that I've done. I was elected mayor in my little tiny town of 600 people, which, to me is the easiest, best approach to trying to find real liberty in your real life. I was just going to ask, what you guys all do, within your own real lives, not just like, spreading information on the internet, but like, what do you do to find liberty for you in the real world? Because I feel like that's where a disconnect is. People think it's like not possible to achieve these things in real life. But me and my husband were elected, into office. I was mayor, he was on the council, and the things we were able to achieve in the very short 6 months that I was allowed to serve was amazing. And so I'm just curious, like, what you guys do in your lives.
Jeff, do you want to go with that?
Well, for me personally, it's mostly just doing these sort of things, like doing videos and interviews and stuff like that. But there's actually a fair amount of anarcho-capitalists who are really against people getting involved in the political system. But I'm not one of them. I think any way possible that you can spread these ideas is a net positive. For example, in Canada, there's a guy named Tim Moen who was the leader of the Libertarian Party. He was a hardcore anarcho-capitalist. I totally supported him. I even ran, I think, in the election up there. I don't remember I think I did. Yeah, I totally support that. Everyone can do their own part in their own ways. Artists can do artwork that is liberty minded. Musicians can write songs about these sort of things, or about how bad the state is, or whatever, stuff like that. Political systems, speaking to people like what the guy in Nigeria is doing. These are all incredibly helpful on like small levels that add up over time, because the actual message that we have should be super exciting and super incredible to most people. It's like, hey, you don't have to be a slave, and the world will actually be a lot better if you aren't, and if no one else is. It's actually one of the most beautiful messages out there. And the more that people speak them, and the more that people hear them, a lot of people think, oh, I was at a cocktail party and I talked to 20 people, and most people didn't seem to understand even what I was talking about, or didn't agree with me. I'll bet there was one or two who totally did, and they went and they started researching and they started getting into this sort of stuff. So it's just basically planting seeds is a great way to do it, and so that's great that you're doing that.
Yeah. I think, Kate, the most important thing is to be unequivocally clear of your values and to live them. Live them regardless. I have business interests. I live in New Zealand. I have business interests, and I'm totally at war the whole time with the state as a consequence of living my values. But you know what? I just don't care. I would happily, and have in the past, collapse it all to make a stand for my values, because that is the most critical thing. And you're right about the dissemination of ideas. Every chance you get, as Jeff was saying, every chance you get, you do want to be beating up on someone. And if in the course of, I don't know, a year, 2 years, maybe 5 years, you get one bureaucrat somewhere to stand up and tip his desk over and walk out of his office, then that's a major success. If you can move one mind, then that's huge. But you've just got to to truly be free yourself, you have to live your values, and that's the experience that very few people have in life, because they end up cowering in a corner because someone yelled boo at them.
Love it. Dave, could you tell real briefly? I know there was a story. You said something about the judge said something to you about wrestling with a pig.
Oh no, I often when I'm being beaten up by the state, I will represent myself in court, mostly to make a circus of the whole event, and also to have a lot of fun. But no, that story, Adam, was at the end of one day with the Crown prosecutor having me in court. We all have to stand, of course, and he heads to the door, and then he comes back and he points to the Crown prosecutor and he says, just a bit of advice. Personal advice. The guy's name was Longy, Mr. Longy. He said two things. If you're going to wrestle with a pig, firstly, you'll both get dirty, and secondly, only the pig will enjoy it, and left. And of course, he knew I was just having the time of my life, sitting there, pulling the state apart through the process.
Dave Henderson, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Kate, thank you. And yeah, keep fighting the good fight. Jaffer, I see you're back up here, man. You got your mic on. It's in your court now.
Hi, Jaffer.
Hello?
Talk to us. Yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, hello. How are you? Because my name is Jaffer, and it's Jeff also for my friends. My friends are calling me Jeff, so I'll always hear you saying Jeff. I was thinking you are talking to Jeff Berwick. So I have a privilege to talk to you guys. I'm really pleased. I'm here in Montreal, Canada, meaning the worst province in Canada in terms of ship attitude. And I want to pay a big tribute to Jeff for what he did, for having the guts to tell the things like they are, especially during the pandemic thing. So thank you very much. I just want to tell you that having lived all these events here, and having also an overview about what is happening in Europe, especially in France and some other countries, that there is nothing to do about the humankind in terms of convincing them of another point, unless if you install a kind of debate to address all the narratives that have been given by the mainstream media, the government, and all of these facts. So the debate, the contradictory debate, is very essential to point out all the things that are doing or that are trying to enforce people with. So this is what you are doing. What you are doing now by disseminating this kind of ideas using radios and podcasts and videos like Jeff did. So keep going on and just don't expect to have the result immediately, but I'm pretty sure that the result will come and will overcome all of these narratives you are living right now. So thank you, Jeff, once again.
Thank you. I would just say, like, having the courage to speak. I've never actually really thought of it that way. To me, there's just the truth and what is right, and I couldn't imagine saying anything that wasn't. So to me, there's not much courage involved on my part, but I do understand a lot of people think that. And I would actually just say to anyone out there who doesn't speak up that much because they're afraid that, they might get shunned or they might have someone come after them or stuff like that, these speaking about what's right and what is true is pretty much the most important thing. And to not worry about, what other people might think. Although that's what most people do, right? And I don't know what it is about me. I just don't care what other people think that much. As long as I'm talking about what I think is true and what is right. If everyone on Earth hates me and thinks I'm wrong, it doesn't bother me at all. And the more that you speak these sort of things, you'll be amazed how many people will start to gravitate towards you, because a lot of people think some of these things at some point, but are too scared and don't know they can say it, or are too scared to say it. And then when they see someone else saying it, that it can really make a lot of people start to do it themselves. And that's when things really start to change. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Jeff.
I just want to add that, Jeff, you have your equivalent in the French spoken people, and there are many people speaking the truth, but they faces consequences, hard consequences, and you understand what I mean. So it's not easy to speak the truth and to influence people with your truth. And the government is aware of this, and all the mainstream media are aware of this. So it's not easy to speak the truth. And of course, when you speak, you have the right words to use and to touch people's mind and to make them gather around you and around the things you are saying. So it's very much important.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think there's two layers to this speaking the truth. And I think, and the emphasis always goes to the second layer, which is convincing other people or having the right message, that'll help people understand or wake people up. And I think that's all very important. I think it's very important. But there's not having the right words or worrying you're not going to be able to convince people or worrying why people might judge you actually keeps people from doing the first layer, which is actually far more important. And that is, when you see something that is wrong and you just say, I'm not going to deal with it right now, or not that I'm going to stop it, not that I'm going to have to convince, everyone else that this is true, but you become complicit in a fraud. You can become complicit in it. And it becomes very hard for you to undo that lie. It's like if you tell a small lie to somebody and that lie compounds over time, but you're actually telling that lie to yourself. And it does compound, and it makes it very, very hard for you to wake up because you actually lose a lot of self-respect. You lose your own dignity in it. And I think that, Jeff is, like Doug, they're highly disagreeable. I'm pretty disagreeable also. And meaning they don't have a problem with conflict with other people. But the most important benefit of that, I really think, is that they're willing to, when they see something wrong, even if they don't have the right words for it yet, they'll say no. And all the actual power a human has is literally in being able to say no, not cooperating, not going along with it.
For sure, and exposing the facts, exposing the matter and the facts that speaks alone just by showing it is much more than words, if you understand what I mean. And at the end, I want to point out the Stanley Milgram experiment about humankind, maybe you're aware of it. At the end, he notices that when there is a contradictory message among the authority, when the authority is discussing itself, and now the subject is not executing the orders given by the authority. So what makes this is the debate, is exposing the truth, and all of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffa.
All right, and I'm hearing rumors that Doug's arrival is near. Thanks to Nick Giambruno. I see you out there in the crowd. Good stuff, man. Thank you for helping out there. We also have about a half hour left here, so if you did have any questions for the panel, now is the time to make sure you raise your hand. We're going to try and get through everyone here as quickly as possible. Also, a reminder to check out the thread there in the bottom right corner of your device, or if you're on desktop, you can just check out the thread. Lots of helpful information, especially clicking the link that will get you updates for breaking news on AnCap Radio. That would be the number one call to action. So make sure you check that one out in the thread. It's from AnCap Radio. There's a link right there, SurveyMonkey link. Go ahead and click it. Drop your info in there. And Mugen, you are now on the mic.
Hello, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Maher. I'm based in the Netherlands, born and raised here. Just giving some background of myself. I have family in the Middle East, mostly in Syria. And some other places as well. Something I've noticed myself over the years, especially after listening to, following Jeff Berwick and following Doug and Math. I enjoy your show as well. Something that I've noticed in Syria, they have a lot of entrepreneurs over there. Everyone has their own business. And here in the West, especially in the Netherlands, people are so focused on job security, working for their boss. And it feels like people don't like to think for themselves, just like you're saying, for a really long time. They're just followers or NPCs, just like that lady just mentioned. I think her name was Mag or Mac. Sorry about that. I just wanted to touch down on it and ask if this is something you've noticed as well. I believe in places like Mexico, they also have a lot of entrepreneurs. Everyone has their own business. Do you notice people are focused on themselves more, they think for themselves more compared to people that work in corporations or companies? That's something I wanted to ask.
Yeah, for sure. I think as an entrepreneur myself, I wasn't really exposed to these ideas when I first started my first company, an internet company in the 1990s. But after dealing with government stuff for just a year or two, that's when I first really heard about Doug Casey. And I was pretty much like you, as an entrepreneur, there's two ways you can kind of look at it. You can kind of realize just how much it destroys so many of the things that in the economy in general. The other way is to be like George Soros and all those kind of people and basically pay off and use the governments to do what they want. But yeah, in general, the kind of person who has their own business is way more open to these sort of things. They're way more of a thinker rather than a follower. And actually, the person who was on from Nigeria, I was thinking he was saying that no one knows anything about markets in Nigeria, and I was going to say a lot of people do. Like all those people who are on the street there selling stuff, they know the markets very well. What they don't understand is how much the government and the central bank is making it hard for them to do the things they want. And of course, the government schools, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, there's never a class on being an entrepreneur or starting your own business because they don't want that. The government schools are set up to create the workers to work in the factories or in the military for the state. Yeah, definitely entrepreneurs are far more likely to be libertarian. Although there's the kinds that will want the governments to regulate stuff so that they can have a monopoly. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, in general, entrepreneur type people are way more open to these ideas.
There's actually a great way to destroy a socialist, and that is to get them to open their own corner store and run it for a couple of years. And, at the end of that, they're finished.
Yeah, Nassim Taleb, who certainly discredited himself during the pandemic, but he has this great quote. He says, the three most harmful addictions are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly salary. And I think the monthly salary one is obviously right on.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
So would it be helpful to set an example of yourself? So if you become an entrepreneur and maybe more of a self-thinker, you will probably more people will probably notice you and ask more things about it. They will be more open to ideas and thoughts, of course. So I think it's good to be to always stay humble in that sense. And yeah, that's what it's just what I'm thinking.
Great, well done.
Thank you, Mugen. Dro TV, Dro.tv. Looks like he wants a little marketing here. Appreciate the entrepreneurial hustle. What's going on, Dro? You're on mute right now. There we go.
Hey, really enjoying this conversation. Glad we've got an AnCap radio.
Is he coming through quiet for you guys? Yep. Dro, it sounds like your mic.
A little quiet, but I can hear him.
Oh,
yeah.
Right, I tried turning myself up a little bit. Hopefully that's a little better. Question for the panel. I'm a member of the Crypto Vigilante. Thank you, Jeff. I'm a believer in cryptocurrency, especially privacy coins, but I always look at things from many different angles. Is there an argument to be made that I think we can agree the cryptocurrency markets are trying to be manipulated, but is there an argument crypto in general, Bitcoin, was created by governments as a Trojan horse to get us used to blockchain technology and eventually CBDCs? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, for anyone who couldn't hear him, he was basically asking if it's possible that things like Bitcoin were actually started by essentially the state or those sort of people to people into digital currencies to basically more enslave them over time. And there's definitely an argument for that. But I've actually been fairly involved in the crypto space since 2011. And I know a lot of the people at Crypto Vigilante were around talking with Satoshi Nakamoto at the time about Bitcoin. And there was, it was a very crypto anarchist sort of a thing. So like from what I've seen personally, I haven't seen any evidence that it was actually started by some nefarious sort of a thing. And actually, it doesn't really make sense for them to do that. Like when Bitcoin started, cryptocurrency started, this started off a revolution in money and banking. And they would have been kind of stupid if they did start it. But I haven't seen any evidence they have. But what I will say is, since Bitcoin has been started, it's kind of been co-opted already by basically the World Economic Forum and type people. That's why they kept the Bitcoin block size so small, is so that it was expensive and slow, so that it wouldn't really compete as digital currency. So that actually has already happened. And that's why I've actually been more into things like Monero, which is better as well because it's a privacy coin. But another thing I like to say as well for people who are like, well, maybe the state started Bitcoin. Well, in some ways, in various ways, the internet itself was kind of started by various government agencies in various ways, although there was so many just regular individuals who contributed to that. But it was like the TCP/IP protocol, I think, was started at like CERN or the Department of Defense or something like that. And, the internet, just like everything, is a double-edged sword. And I would say if they started the internet to, the World Wide Web to kind of enslave people into a digital prison, it's kind of backfired as well, because just what I was saying before the internet, some people knew about Doug Casey. I don't know how he did his newsletter in the 70s, like mailing it out and stuff. But since the internet, we've had the opportunity to get our information out there. And because of that, we've had a lot of opportunities because of the internet. So even if, let's say we know for sure the CIA started Bitcoin, it's kind of backfired on them massively. The cryptocurrencies have already massively changed the world, and I think will massively change it even more. But it's always going to be a battle between the tyrannical type statist people who want to control everything in the world and everyone else. But I would say if cryptocurrencies didn't exist today, I'd be far, far, far less optimistic about the future.
Well said. Dave, Matt, anything on that? All right, Christoph, you're on the mic.
Hi guys, how are you doing? You okay?
Good.
I'm a Polish guy. I live in the UK, and
English is not your first language.
Yeah, it's not. Basically, what it is, I would like to share my story with my son. Basically, we took him from the secondary school. What's happened? Basically, we lost him basically for the first couple of years.
Yeah, hello, I'm Christoph's wife. I just came back from work and Christoph said, I'll be a speaker. And I was like, where? So, yeah, actually, he was going to secondary school. In primary school, it was actually all right. We had a good bond with him. But since he started secondary school, when he was coming back, he was always tired, actually exhausted, and he didn't want to talk to us about anything, and he had so much anger.
He was depressed, basically. We had a phone calls from the school that Nati has been naughty because he did this and the other, and I've asked, has he done anything to other children or anything? No. He was still kicking a ball when the time was off, and then, they had to come back.
Mainly because, he couldn't go to the toilet. When it was the summertime, he wasn't allowed to remove his blazer when it was like 30 degrees. We live in England, and, 30 degrees, it doesn't happen very often, let's be honest.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, but in, there was a time when we had the whole, heat wave, and it was like 30 degrees every day, and he was like coming back from school like sweat, and honestly, he said they are not allowed to, remove their blazers. They're not allowed to,
Were the
of course,
teachers?
yeah.
They actually had a short
Sleeve, yeah. So it was like I said, it was against of human rights, and if
no, basically we said like if that's the temperature, and he said other students, they were sweating, they were like they couldn't concentrate. I said just take it off. If they call us, call us.
Sure. But what do you want from us, Christoph? Like, how can we help you?
Oh no. Just wanted to say that we got our kid back.
You did
with us when we took him from the school. Basically, we
unregistered. You're homeschooling now?
Yes,
home education. To be fair.
There you go. Now, isn't that the way?
And then I know we haven't got much time. Just wanted to say thank you for all you guys.
Oh, well, thank you.
Actually introduced that, thing to us, because we even not been thinking about it. But he said, just take your kids out of the government camps, Like,
there you go. There you go.
Basically, we got our son back after I'm coming back from work. He's like, "Oh, Dad, how you're right," and all that stuff.
He's so emotional now. And
fantastic.
He's actually came back to us, and we've got some contact with him now, where we didn't have for so many years. So we would like to say thank you.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, handing your children over to the state is never going to end well. So good on you for getting them back. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing all what you're doing. Jeff Berwick, I will see you. Probably we will see you in February.
If nothing will happen, if another pandemic is not,
it's not going to distract us. Yeah, so we'll see you in Mexico.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. I actually hear that a lot from people who have just taken their kids out of the schools, and they want me to like get on a video call with like their kids, because the kids want to thank me and they want to thank me, and it's amazing because like people just sort of assume this is all part of the mind control that they've been doing for like hundreds of years. That well, of course you have to send your kids to the government schools for like 12 years of their most formative years of their life. And people don't realize that there's other ways of doing it, and so much better ways. Like the kids really should be around their parents and their family way more, but this is what the state wants. They want to destroy the families, obviously. And no kid should be sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day when they're like 8 years old. Like they should be running around, learning all kinds of stuff. And this is how they actually destroy most people. But after like 12 years of it, most people are basically just so beat up and depressed and, drinking and doing drugs and stuff, because basically they were in prison for like 12 years. Like it's the most insane thing to me personally that people do this at all. But your average person has no idea that there's another option.
There you go.
No, we're going to get to you in a moment here, Larry. We have a couple surprise guests here. So Luis Kenny, good to see you. I heard you have good company right now.
Actually, Luis is sitting here next to me. This is Doug Casey. I'm speaking on Luis's phone. I don't have the technical competence to make my own phone work. I hate to admit that in public, actually.
Oh, Doug, we forgive you.
I would say it should be a source of pride, really.
Yeah.
People are way too dependent on these things. It destroys so many people's lives. You're actually way better not having them.
Well, I had a cell phone back in the days when they were large, clunky things, but I only bought an iPhone when I went to spend a day and a night with John McAfee in Tennessee, and I thought it would just be too embarrassing to hang out with McAfee and not have an Apple iPhone. So I bought the damn thing, and that's when I first got my one. It was McAfee himself that was the inducement for me to actually buy one of the damn things. I rarely use them, but that's the story.
But you've still got your fax machine, haven't you, Doug?
It has cobwebs on it, but yeah, it's around.
Oh, good.
Well, good to have you up here, Doug and Luis. Thank you for helping get the man of the hour on here. Larry Aiden, you are on the mic, sir.
Hello, everybody. It's a bit late out here. I knew I'm in Doug's file and Matt's file. I'm all the way out in Malaysia, so kind of woke up a little early to get in here. I actually found Doug in Capitalism and Morality, one of Giant Bandari's seminars, and I remember Berwick was on there a long time ago, and it's refreshing to see how far he's come along. I'm actually from Somalia, and Marxism absolutely wrecked the place, and I was living in Canada and escaped during when Matt and Doug said get out. I kind of stayed a little bit longer and finally made it out. And, one thing that stuck with me when you guys were talking about right now is, when you're on the street talking with people, how do you get through to people? And there's one conversation that really, struck me was speaking with a Canadian, and because I'm a first generation kind of thing. And so, speaking with a Canadian in the country, asking, hey, why do you feel this way? Why do you feel, with the mandates, with this, with that, and what's happening with the state? And I said, hey, where I'm from, I don't have anything, right? The place is gone. I'm a child from refugees. And if I lose this place, where do I go? And, the Charter of Rights was something, that really, I was a bit of a little statist when I was a little kid. But, the Charter was something that meant something to me. And these rights, mobility, speech, protest, all these things, kind of meant something to me. And because where I came from, we lost all that, just gone, right? So when I said to him, I said, for you guys in Canada and in the West, this is your time to exercise. I get to exercise this. There's nothing else for me. There's these rights that were given to me, and I have to exercise them. And the gyms are closed, so now the exercise is on the streets. And so, and he then took it as an aha moment, and he said, wow, I never got someone to say it to me like this. And we had a good discussion for a while, and I just said, for you guys as Canadians, you guys never had a crazy civil war, crazy things happen, in the country and things like this, but this is your chance, and this is you guys can try it out. Try out tyranny. Try out oppression. Try out slavery. Just try it out. But for many of us who have fled places where the state has done a lot of damage, a lot of pain, I can't stand for this. And if I don't do anything, it's just ideologically, philosophically, anything. I'm pretty much stateless. And now I'm on the run. But exercising, global exercise. I think it's for now. This is what it is now for us. It's like as if they've created a game for everybody who wants rights, who wants to exercise. It's like a globally a switch has been flicked off, and regardless of where you're from, if you see things are wrong and you can act on it, this is your chance. This is your chance to exercise it. Wherever country you're from, everywhere. Yeah.
Well done. Okay, Larry, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I would just add to that the government never gives you rights. You have those rights as a human being. But yeah, it's very important to use them. And if you don't, things can go very bad.
Thank you.
All right. We've got Tax Dodger on the mic now. Tax Dodger, thank you for joining us. You are up. And you are currently muted if you're able to unmute your mic.
Mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. My question is for Doug. I recently watched... Hello?
Yep.
I recently watched a video...
You go, bro.
I'm with you.
I recently watched a video of Doug's explaining the breakup of the United States, the benefits of it, and why it shouldn't have existed in the first place. And I'd like to know the timescale he thinks that's going to happen, and if he still actually believes in it. I'd also like to give a big shout. Sorry, Doug, to cut you off. I just want to give a big shout out to Jeff and Lucy. Thanks for everything, and thank you, Doug. Please.
Okay. Look, there's very few laws that I believe in, but one of them is the second law of thermodynamics. It basically says everything falls apart over time. And at this point, it seems to me that the U.S. is falling apart at the seams. It started out as a country with a common culture, a common language, a common religion, common traditions. But now it's evolved into a multicultural domestic empire. And it's starting to resemble something like the old Soviet Union before it broke up. It's starting to resemble Yugoslavia before it broke up. Or, if you'd like, it's starting to resemble Czechoslovakia before it split in two. It's a young Hispanic male in Los Angeles has almost nothing in common with an old white broad in Massachusetts. And neither of them have anything in common with the black guy in the ghetto. These are all very different groups. So, yeah, I think it's going to break up.
Well said. Thank you, Doug. We've got our next speaker getting set up here. Marvelous comeback. As we're waiting for him to get set up here, guys, go Matt, Jeff, Dave in that order. Matt, what for you has been one of your biggest takeaways so far from today's conversation?
Well, it's great to hear that there's actually so many people out there really doing things. I can't remember the lady who spoke up who was elected mayor earlier, but of her small town. She said it was 600 people, but it was I was intrigued by what she had to say, the fact that she had the wherewithal to do it. And then she said it was amazing what she got done for the 6 months that she was allowed to have the role.
Yeah,
I thought that was fantastic. But people out there doing stuff, obviously, I know a lot of the people who have spoken here, and I appreciate you guys coming on and speaking or adding questions to the group. But it's wonderful seeing what people are actually getting done in the real world. That's what matters.
Yeah. It's also been interesting to see how international it's all been, which isn't that surprising to me, running Anarcho-Poco. And for any AnCap out there, if you don't know about Anarcho-Poco, we're going into our 10th year, coming up in 2024. It's all anarcho-capitalists on the beach in Mexico. And I know through that it's such an international audience. So these ideas are actually all over the world now, which is a big change. And maybe Doug can speak to that a little bit, because we were talking about that earlier. And I was saying, I don't even know what it was like back in like the 70s when Doug was doing this stuff, like how many people even understood what we're talking about. And now you have 1,000 people showing up at Anarcho-Poco. You've got tons of people on like AnCap radio here. These ideas are really spreading now.
That's a good point, Jeff, because I was first introduced to libertarianism when I was living in Washington, D.C., the heart of the beast, back in the 70s. And there used to be a libertarian supper club in Washington, D.C., and about 24 people, all of the local libertarians in Washington, knew each other and came to the supper club. And we were really odd ducks. And it's really spread. I'm pessimistic about the way the world is going and how things are evolving. But at the same time, it's true that libertarianism in general, but libertarianism has kind of gotten a bad name for itself, with all kinds of flaky people calling themselves libertarians, and most libertarians being poor as church mice, which is one reason why it's nice to be an AnCap. We're actually capitalists, and we value money and actually have some, as well as being anarchists, not just mealy-mouthed libertarians. So the fact that this is growing really gives me I mean, it's counter to everything else that's happening in the world. But it seems to me this movement is growing very quickly, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
Well said. Well said, Dave. What are your takeaways from today's conversation?
Hi.
We got you still here, Dave. I can see him here. All right, Dave's getting his mic. Marvello, you're up here. Good to see you. What do you got for the group?
Hi. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, cool. I'm based in Poland, and I would like to express my gratitude for being a member of of the community. It's really helped me on my journey to the truth, and particularly interested in crypto, as I've been a trader for many years, and basically Jeff Berwick put me onto Monero and all these other privacy coins. But my question is, it's an extension of a question that was asked here, and it's something that Max Egan says sometimes, that crypto's fine, but what if they just limit your access to the internet or shut it off? And how are you going to deal with the crypto that you have? That's my question.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting times. They're definitely trying to move towards getting everyone on a digital ID, and then they're going to try to make it so you need a digital ID to get on the internet, and then they're going to try to limit you to certain things. But the one thing I can say about crypto is this comes from crypto anarchists from like the 1980s and 1990s. The number one thing that a lot of these, not the Bitcoin people of today, a lot of these Bitcoin Twitter people are just mostly idiots. But like the hardcore people who have been behind the cryptocurrencies for well before the internet even basically came out are the kind of people who find ways around all those sort of things. So I'm not terribly concerned that they're going to be able to limit cryptocurrency usage. Many of the people involved in these sort of things, that's what cryptocurrencies were created to do, was to get around any way to be able to stop them. The only thing they can really do is basically turn off the internet and turn off all the power in as many places as they can. But even then, there's already a lot of crypto anarchists setting up like mesh networks and alternative internets. So that's probably one of the least of my concerns, is that they're going to somehow be able to stop crypto in that way. What they're trying to do is make it illegal in lots of places. They just made Monero illegal in Dubai. They got that Indian woman politician from the U.S. who's creating a crypto army to kill crypto, and that's because the people running a lot of the globalist types realize that if crypto continues to rise and people continue to use it more and more, it massively threatens their entire central banking, fractional reserve banking system. And they're going to try everything they can to stop it. But I've been in this since 2011, so about 12 years now. And they've been trying the whole time, and they're not even close to even stopping it at all. They're really two steps behind on most of these things, and there really is no way to stop it unless, like I said, they turn off all the power and all the internet. But then people have generators, people have mesh networks, so that's not a massive concern of mine. But it does go to show that they want to try to control everything, because they're starting to realize they're losing a lot of control, both of the money system using cryptocurrencies, but also of the ideas, as we can see through the spread of libertarian ideas across the world, that they're really losing control. So that's what they're trying to control it as much as possible. But really, I don't think that they're going to be able to. It's just going to be what happens in between their whole system collapsing and what happens next that's going to be the interesting part.
All right, thank you.
And also, let me add something to what Jeff just said, which I completely agree with, incidentally. But it's that digital is wonderful, and it's one thing, but it's also important to have analog assets. And that means gold and silver coins that are in your own possession. I mean, in addition. People are forgetting that, and they shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have a certain amount of my assets in gold and silver coins. In case of anything could happen. We're really in the apocalypse here, and anything can happen. So the best way to have the best chance of surviving through it and prospering through it is to have all the options available to you. So I could totally foresee something so chaotic happening that basically the internet goes down in many ways. Your average person still doesn't use cryptocurrencies all that much. So here in Mexico, I definitely make sure I've got quite a large amount of gold and silver, just like Doug said, so that if that does happen, I'm still totally fine and I can still do whatever I need to do because people still all across the world, even though it's less and less, and there's obviously people in places like California where they interview them and they don't even know what a gold coin is or what it's worth or anything. But most of the world still does. So it's still quite important. The one big thing that I would say that's a huge advantage for the crypto is its ability to easily transfer. Because I've heard so many people that are into what we're talking about. And of course, Doug and Matt have moved to Uruguay. I'm here in Mexico. A lot of people are starting to move to other parts of the world. And the big question is, how do I move all my gold? It's like, well, that'd be a lot easier if you just had Monero or Bitcoin. It would take 1 second and it would cost one cent and you'd move it. But that's the biggest problem, of course, with gold and silver is the portability and the ease of being able to use it and transfer it. But it's also very important because we're going to be headed into incredibly chaotic times, and you want to have every option at your ready.
Facts. Thank you, Jeff. Doug as well for that point. And we're at the top of the hour here, folks. So we just want to say thank you, everyone who tuned in. Those who got to get up here, raise your hand, interact with the audience. This is something we're going to be doing very frequently, at least once per week. We'll see as it grows to the vision that Dave and Doug really planted here years ago, and we're finally on the surface, moving up into the right. So, Dave, did you have any parting words for the audience? I know you're really the mind behind all of this.
No, it's very encouraging. I'm very grateful for all the callers and obviously for all the listeners here. But I mean, this is a very raw concept that we're playing with, and we hope that we can build into something that's meaningful and particularly useful to people in terms of helping folk interact to better understand the issues, and particularly to better understand the philosophy and the principles that underpin it.
Doug, anything to follow up on that?
No, it's just nice to be among like-minded friends. It's fantastic. And perhaps someday, soon, this will actually be 24/7 AnCap radio with lots of interesting speakers talking and listening both. We might be onto something.
You're right.
Yep. Matt.
And thank you, Jeff. Sorry. Matt.
Yeah, no worries. Matt, any parting words?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity. Thanks everybody for being here. I hope you join the list that Adam put together so you can just be alerted about what comes next with AnCap Radio.
That's right. Yeah, be sure to check out the thread there. There is a link to get on the list for AnCap Radio updates. And Jeff Berwick, thank you for blessing us with your time. I know Anarcho-Poco's, what are we looking at, maybe 10 months away or something like that? Any special messages to the audience for what you're working on?
Yeah, I would just say, I'm happy to see more and more anarcho-capitalist stuff getting out there. I'm glad you guys are doing this. It's good to be out there on Twitter as well. There's a lot of people on there, so it's good to spread the message that way. And yeah, if you don't know about Anarcho-Poco, it's the biggest anarcho-capitalist conference. It's our 10th year next year. You can just search for Anarcho-Poco. I know it's kind of hard to spell, but if you get close, you'll probably find it. And that's coming up in February next year. And we also have the Dollar Vigilante, which is dollarvigilante.com, which is our financial newsletter, which was basically the first outwardly anarcho-capitalist financial newsletter, although truthfully, Doug Casey's was definitely the first that I know of. but we were the first ones that said that's what we are. And you can get our videos and all that stuff, including Doug Casey's videos with Matt Smith and lots of other libertarians and AnCaps at vigilante.tv. And I would suggest that you have Doug come back in next week because we didn't get to hear from him too much this week, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yep. Reading our mind here. Just got a message from our team. So we'll talk to Doug, right? We'll see who's coming back next week. We do have a secret guest joining us next Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern as well. So be on the lookout for updates, reminders. Follow everyone who's on the panel here, folks. Thank you for tuning into the launch of AnCap Radio. You can say you're a part of anarcho-capitalism history here today, and we're looking forward to the future. Thank you for your time, your energy, and we'll see you in the next session. Thanks.
Thank you.